Hello, and thank you so much for taking the time out to listen. Today I titled this message, Young People Mistreated, Now Elders Need Their Help. Young people mistreated, now elders need their help. Today you're going to get a lesson, if you will, from a biblical perspective on what one needs to do if you feel or you believe that young people should be organizing and helping you. Because this God that we serve, He knows that there are some selfish family members that are making their issues everybody's issues. You see, many of our young people are being asked, sometimes even commanded, to step in and handle issues that are far beyond their years. You have elders who are hoping and wishing and praying that young people will organize, because now they're seeing that this current administration at the time of this recording is doing some things that impact them. Everything from taxes to their retirement accounts to healthcare decisions. And some of you all can add to the list. And so some of the elders are too tired, too stressed, going through the motions, don't have the type of energy that young people have. And so what they're looking for is to place some responsibility that they would have ordinarily carried onto the young people, packaging some of these issues in such a way where you're going to get old one day and you're going to want young people to help you out. So come on, let's organize. Come on, let's do what it takes in order to fight the powers that be. But I'll tell you that this will work for some, especially those that love attention, those that love likes and comments, those that are trying to make a name for themselves. Whereas there are others who, why should I care? Why should I care? The mistreatment of children and grandchildren and nieces and nephews and others has been obvious for quite some time. I have addressed issues for years on this channel related to both young and old. But now that there is a threat to one's lifestyle, I need you to help. Come on in here and help me. From wanting someone to cook and clean and bathe the older, to someone needs to step it up and help me protect my money that you didn't bother to share, money that you didn't want to help me with my education. You didn't want to help me buy a house. You didn't want to help me buy a car. You didn't want to help me with my children. You didn't want to help me move. You kept telling me that I wasn't deserving of this and of that. And you kept telling me I had to earn and earn and earn some more. And even when you were in a position to help me get out of some debt that could have been avoided had the support been there, you said no. Because you see, a lot of the elders were once young. A lot of the elders were once young. And many of us at the time were younger. One of the elders in the family noticed selfishness. Noticed it early on. Said that there were members in the family that should have never had children. Those that spoke back in the 90s, they are no longer above ground. And now look at where many individuals are today. It means a lot for many people in the older generations, especially 60s, 70s, and 80s. It means a lot to certain ethnicities that you young people organize. But God is exposing some of these individuals. Let me be really specific here. Many selfish individuals who had the mindset that it's every man for himself, and you pick up yourself by the bootstraps and you keep going and you keep pushing. Just don't you come over here and ask me for anything. And they stored up their wealth for their own security. It wasn't about everybody else. They even had the wives and the girlfriends look out for them. Some didn't have the man, but they had lots of money and assets and all of these other things. And no, you can't touch this. And no, I'm not going to keep burning up my gas to go and help you out. And, you know, I'm on a fixed income. But meanwhile, you got a diversified financial portfolio. Who you fooling? And you got insurance, whole life insurance, that you can borrow money from anytime you feel like it. Who you fooling? They withheld generosity. No. I don't celebrate this, and I don't help with this, and I don't just give. You got to do something. And so you, younger person, struggling. And now they got one more thing to ask you. You gonna organize? You gonna fight? You gonna protect? You know that they trying to do what? I don't have any money for them to come after. And the type of job that I got, well, I guess it's already considered a black job. So, you know, I don't really know what to tell you. But you know, this is about the future, you see? About the future what? I know for some of you all, you're going to scratch your head. You're going to squirm a bit. You're going to be all confused in the coming days, weeks, and months. Back when I was younger, we went out there and we protested. Back when I was younger, we were doing all these things for our people. Have you ever heard of an elder giving up everything to protest something that's happening with a young person, whatever that might be? You may have, if you watch mainstream media, every now and again, a young person passes away and then someone gets off the couch and they decide that they're going to rally up the support of the sisterhood and the brotherhood, and we're going to take this to the street. But I'm talking about a specific issue, one that we can all relate to, related to a young person. I don't want to lose you in this message, but what I do want you to do is just think about all of the issues in recent years where you saw 50, 60, 70, and 80-year-olds fighting for young people. When the issue came up about carrying this educational debt for 10, 15, 20 plus years, how many of us never got to that type of wealth where we would be able to handle all of the debt related to education, and that we needed a break. We needed a break. Our credit took a hit. Wasn't ever able to own property. Did you ever see any of the elders go out to the street and say, enough with this? Enough with this. You're burdening the young people with all of this interest. The institutions are way too expensive, and we refuse to pay for any of it. Instead, there were those individuals that over time, it was young people looking out for themselves, because a lot of the young people were told, you got to take care of that bill. I'm not helping you, but you were the one who encouraged me. I know what I said, but I'm not taking on all of that. But I'm not making enough money to meet the payments. Well, that's not my problem. Get 2 more jobs. Okay? And so fast forward now. I need you all to help us out. Our retirement accounts, these property taxes, the income taxes, our health care. Every man for himself, right? You stored up your money. You looked out for your own security. When there were the opportunities to be generous, no. You heard about the young people drowning in debt, struggling to pay their rent, facing all sorts of emergencies, and there's no one in the family who's willing to put any money in anyone's hand, or if they do, it's never enough. It's never enough. Judged, ridiculed because you had that baby out of wedlock. Judged, ridiculed because you didn't marry that boyfriend or that girlfriend. Meanwhile, since when did you become the Christian? Now you want to start pulling out the Bible to really protect your money because you don't want to help with the grandchildren, and you don't want to help with the wedding, and you don't want to help with the baby shower. You don't want to give up your money. Well, see, you don't understand, because it's times like these that I knew these days were coming. That's why I didn't give them kids anything. But yet you want them to do what? Organize, right? I will tell you that this isn't going to go in the direction that some people think it's going to go. It's actually going to be a sad time for many, many people, because you know what happens when you send people out there on the front line with police officers, with drug sniffing dogs, God says that there are those individuals who have been overlooked. They've been overlooked in their time of need. They were his children. They were, notice, past tense. Disappointment after disappointment, angered, surrounded by selfish people, young people who don't see God in elders, but they see plenty of selfishness. No shock that they don't want anything to do with the one true God. Proverbs 21:13 says, whoever shuts their ears to the cry of the poor will also cry out and not be answered. This scripture wasn't just about the random guy or gal on the street. This scripture was also about the poor people in the family, the poor people who took a hit for any number of reasons. And it wasn't just about the older people, it was also the younger people too. This Bible that we read teaches us about wealth, gives us a bit of wisdom in terms of how we go about treating others. And we also learn about the history in terms of how people dealt with one another, handled issues. Can I just keep it real and honest and say that all that meanness and all that anger and all that disrespect toward that young person, it's reaping season. Such a twist in this chapter of life. It's reaping season. The division is now going to creep up between the old and the young over this very issue that I'm speaking of right now. And God is saying, don't make that young person go out there and do too much of anything. You know why? Because God didn't make you come out of pocket and give to them when they were in need. So who do you think you are? Oh, someone, this is an offensive message. I know that's right. Click off like you typically do. But for the one who wants to sit a while, basically, I'm telling you what the future holds. There'll be a win here, but it's not going to really move the needle. A win in the sense that everybody is paying attention and someone has a microphone in their hand and they're talking about how government needs to do A, B, and C. But there's only so much that's going to get done because you still got selfish folk who are not trying to do too much of anything in terms of making sure that there is the housing, making sure that there is the car and some gas money and whatever else. If you want me to go somewhere and do something for you, then you're going to come out of your retirement money and you're going to help. You're going to help organize. If you want me to speak out about something, you're going to make sure that you're doing more than $25 once a month. Okay? If you want me to be the one to speak to people who can move the needle, then you better make sure that you got security for me. This is what the young person should demand of the elder, and you are totally in line. Do not think for 1 minute that you're being disrespectful for asking. You see, it may even be on your heart to want to go somewhere and make a difference. And that's all well and good. However, you make sure that those old folks give you some money. You make sure that if you should get in trouble, that you are aligned with the right type of people who's going to get you out of jail. Because, this is going to get messy. Part of the reason why people don't feel moved to do too much of anything, especially nowadays with all of the struggles and so forth, is because you had previous generations that didn't want to share their experience. I'm telling it. Because on this channel, we talk about family challenges, difficulties, secrets, and some of you all know the rest. Some folks just wanted the attention and the acknowledgement and the praise to go to them. So what they did was they held on to the knowledge in terms of how they went about organizing, who they were connected and affiliated with. They right away formulated their opinion about you young people don't know too much of anything. You need to just go head on. And so we came along, I'm speaking for Generation X, and we were just like, well, they don't really want us to ask them any questions. It was one of those situations where you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And then they said we was lazy and we was good for nothing and all of that, even when we were doing things. It wasn't making great splashes because at that time, things were quite comfortable in a lot of communities. So what are you going to make waves for if it's not a serious issue that's going down? And then there were those pockets here and there where it was like, well, we might want to speak up because here comes another brother getting, knocked upside the head, and another one that lost his life. But it wasn't like it was back in the 60s. But my grandmother said in 2015, before she left out of here, she said, you all are going to go back to the days of old. I said, what you mean by that? She said, they ain't going to let another black president show up there. If anything, they mad that the first one got in there. Now, mind you, that was 2015, so she wouldn't have known anything about a black woman being up next later on down the line, you see. And so it sounds, disappointing, like, wow, that's so negative. And you wanted to believe that everything was going to just keep going. And meanwhile, she's saying it's not going to keep going in the way that you think. They're going to set you back. The fact that black man even got as far as he got, that's a miracle. But y'all going to pay. Y'all going to pay for that black man being a president. That just didn't make sense at the time. But then as time went on, I said, I know what she's talking about. Because before she checked out of here, she started seeing where black men were getting whooped on again by police. That's how they talk, okay? So it was disappointing to see that, but she was right. But the problem, though, was that when you tried to sit down and talk to some of the elders, they didn't always articulate things in a way that you could understand in terms of what their experiences were like fully. You got bits and pieces of information, but if you wanted to get a full story, that's why you had to find books to find out what it was like in the 1920s and 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s for black people, or for any ethnicity for that matter. There was also those individuals who they were not financially responsible. So how were they going to be able to help anybody do anything, especially on a national scale, when they couldn't even manage their own finances? People were playing numbers. That's what I talk about the gambling every now and again. The pimps, the players, the liars, the hustlers, the gamblers, you see? So if you're doing all of that, how are you formulating in your mind what needs to be done in order to make things better for the next generation when the majority of the people were like this. There were the minority of intelligent, educated, knowing how to put some things in motion. But the majority of the people weren't into all of that. And that was a cutting truth. Some folks were just fine with segregation. But our textbooks and what we learned in school made it seem like everybody was against that. But that's not true. Some people want their communities to be the way they want them to be, whether it's all white, all black. Some folks are actually quite excited about these times because now it forces you to take all that education that you got, and now you're going to start that business finally. And that is your clap back to the establishment. And all that education that you got will finally move on you to pick up the phone and call some people and let's sit down and let's break bread and figure out what we're going to do in terms of making our community, our city, our state better. A lot of times people were dismissive when we did raise up some concerns. We did question some things. They said, I don't know about all that, child. I'm sure you'll figure it out. You see? When things weren't that uncomfortable, when things weren't causing things being, challenges, societal challenges, when they weren't making people so uncomfortable to the point where they couldn't get rest at night, there was no reason to wage war on the establishment. You bothered an older person too much with your questions or your problems. Child, I ain't got nothing to do with that. That's not mine. I mind my business over here. All right? Matter of fact, I need you to help me. You coming over here asking me all these questions and you need this and that. I need you to help me. Go on in that room and clean up them dishes. And then I need you to wipe down these walls, and I need you to sweep, and I need you to vacuum and take the garbage out. And when's the last time you cleaned that commode? The toilet, you see. So if you thought that you were going to get some type of blueprint in terms of how you were going to take down the establishment and all of the issues related to the establishment, you had another thing coming. Matter of fact, just be grateful for whatever job you got and bring some money home. But I need some money. You need some what? You see? Oh, some folks know I'm telling the truth. And so the constant rejection that I don't have time for, I'm not telling you, go ahead on, take care of this and take care of that. Now, fast forward. Hey, baby, what you think? You think you can come over here and help out a little bit? Oh, yeah, I hear what that man saying on the television and everything. Yeah, you look out for mama's money or grandmama's or great-granddaddy's or, granddaddy, go on. I hope y'all get it together because why, once again, is someone going to risk possibly their life to protect people who aren't doing too much of anything for them? Daddies who, I ain't trying to be there with no mama, okay? My baby mamas, they know how it is. I'm trying to be out here and see what I could get into. So you kept putting those women before me, huh? Huh, Dad? Oh, okay. And so you want me to do what? See, you asking a lot. You asking a lot from children who, I don't know where daddy is. I don't know what daddy does. Daddy don't call me, and I don't call him. Let me tell you a story briefly out of the Bible That pride, right? Because for some of you all, I'm sure you hear that pride, right? I got my house, I got my car, I got my money, all that pride. And I told you all, pride comes before a fall. And it wasn't just about, you know, LGBTQIA showing up with pride, right? But there was also generational pride among the elders, no matter what color. I'm just giving you an example of what I noticed and what I heard with regard to the African American community. But I'm sure that that generational pride sounds something like, I've worked hard for my money, and I don't think you want to come over here and ask me for too much of anything unless you intend on doing A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Okay? All right. You see, it can come in so many different ways. But either way, though, God is convicting some people. It's just best that if somebody wants to do something, so be it. If you're encouraging someone, then your money should also follow when it comes to this organizing that some people are talking about. First Kings 12, Solomon had died, and his son Rehoboam became king. And the people were telling Rehoboam, basically, they wanted these burdens to be made lighter. Solomon had placed some burdens while he was king. And so they were going to Rehoboam like, we need you to lighten up this load. And Rehoboam had elders around him. But instead of listening to the elders, he goes off and he starts listening to his peers. And the peers were telling him, you need to make life harder for them. Just make life harder for them. And so, being that Rehoboam is king and he's prideful, an arrogant type, that's what ends up setting off the rebellion, and then the kingdom is torn apart. So when we look at the family and the relationship between family members, we have this older generation that doesn't want to admit that they were harsh, that they were mean-spirited, that they placed a lot of burdens upon them. The financial issues, the emotional, duress, right? The dramas and traumas, daddy out here in these streets, or mommy, she's, doing whatever, or maybe mom and dad is together, but very just selfish. Okay. There has to be a conversation with a young person on how you intend to make some things right. Because if you're trying to push young people in a direction of protest and organizing and looking out for you, because basically a lot of those issues impact, once again, 60, 70, 80-year-olds. When it comes down to money and healthcare, once again, and taxes and all of that other stuff. And we're talking about people who got money, all right? And first of all, you got to come humble, not prideful, not arrogant, not talking about all of what you got. If this sort of thing would have happened for many of us young people at the time in the family, we probably would have had better relationships, because it's like, wow, you're not the big bad whoever standing over us, but you're human just like me. And so basically you're saying, okay, you said this and you said that and you were wrong about some things, and you're sorrowful. and you really wanted what was best for us, and, just came at us correctly. But instead, there was some cussing and fussing and some attitudes and some eye rolls and some I'm not talking to you and dangling carrots and dangling sticks. Okay, so at some point, you push a young person away. You push them away. There was demands on top of demands. The young person shows up, they got their conversation about one thing or another that they need, and rather than giving them some help, truly getting them some help, and encouraging them and offering them a bit of wisdom, instead it's, all of the negative conversation. So now the older has to show up if they want to make things right now. Now, if you don't want to make things right, you don't have to listen to this. But now the older comes to the younger and admits fault and is willing to help. I want to help you out. What can I do to make this right? You see? No, you don't have to do anything. I know typically that's what I expect, but I'm not expecting anything from you. And so they show up with some love, right? You also have a conversation where instead of saying things like, you need to do this for us and that for us, and after all we did for you, and just piling up all these different responsibilities upon that young person, like, matter of fact, you handle my taxes, you start doing my work, and then do my health care, and check and see what this president and messed me up on, and all of this other stuff. Okay, rather than focus on take, and handing off all, responsibilities onto that young person, how about you pass those responsibilities on to the professional, and then you take the time out to teach that young person why all of this is so important to you. And when you're generous, and we've learned this time and time again at churches and in reading, when you're generous, the same measure that you use will be measured back to you. And right now, you're not getting much out of some of these young people, because at the end of the day, especially when they move away, and you're so grateful that they're not calling you or asking you for anything, out of sight, out of mind. You see, and the relationship becomes more and more distant. You can win somebody back if you meet their need. You can get some people to do some things when you're sweet, when you're explaining things where they're like, okay, well, what's in it for me? And it's not always about the money, right? Some folks just want to know that they're loved and they're appreciated and they're cared for. You haven't talked to me in all these years, but now that your retirement is at risk, and now that your taxes and all these other things, your health care, now you want to talk to me? About what? You see? Oh, you don't need to treat me this way. You call me out the clear blue and you want me to do what? Click. That's a person that doesn't have a quality relationship. Didn't think that it was important back when they were younger. So we can't just put it all on a young person as to why they don't have this good relationship with their family member. That family member didn't have the foresight to think ahead when they were mistreating that child. I don't make people go back to abusers. I don't tell people that, oh, you should this and you should that, when I know that folks aren't right. And I don't care how dire the situation appears to be, internationally, nationally, or anything else. That's one thing I'm not going to be supporting is sending people back into circles where abuse took place just because folks got what they deem is a common enemy. If anything, we need some people to be put behind bars for what they did to young people. And some of you all, you heard my audio message on child abuse signs. That's what really needs to be done. Galatians 6 and 7, do not be deceived. God is not mocked. A man reaps what he sows. And this is what is going on with some of these people. It's not about love. It's not about care. It's just what the Lord showed us. It's selfishness. And so they're deceiving young people into going along with some things to protect themselves. And we're finding some people out. And so, if anything, I am asking that the Lord will continue to separate the wheat from the tares. I'm asking that the Lord will move on the spirit of quality men and quality women to do what His will is. And sometimes His will doesn't look like what we think it should look like. So get ready for that. But when you are that one, and you may be young now, but as you get older, those children who are little babies are going to eventually get older. And if you're not such a nice person with those children now, I'm telling you right now, because I've come from some of those facilities over the years, having worked around elders and visiting elders, you will be one of the lonely ones. One of the ones filled with regret because you thought you was going to always be young. And you may have thought that they were always going to forgive you. And then they get to a place where they stop. They push back. And then they don't want to come around you any longer. It happens. It happens a lot. And there's a lot of parents who have those secrets as well as grandparents. That those were old pictures they posted up. They haven't seen that child in a long time. Some folks haven't seen their grandchildren. So I thank you. I thank you for listening. To God be the glory. Feel free to like, subscribe, comment, share. Blessings to you.